The champagne bubbles caught the light as I raised my glass, watching my son Marcus dance with his new bride Sarah across the elegant ballroom floor. 26 years of love, sacrifice, and sleepless nights had led to this moment, my boy's wedding day. The reception was everything we'd dreamed of. Crystal chandeliers casting warm light over tables adorned with white roses, the gentle hum of conversation mixing with the string quartet's melody, and 200 of our closest friends and family celebrating love. I should have been purely happy. Instead, a familiar knot of anxiety twisted in my stomach as I spotted my sister Victoria approaching with a tall, distinguished man in an expensive suit. At 42, Victoria had always been the successful one in our family, the corporate executive with the corner office, designer clothes, and condescending attitude that made family gatherings feel like performance reviews. "David," she called out, her voice carrying that fake enthusiasm she reserved for public displays. "I want you to meet my boss, Richard Hartwell." According to YouTube analytics, 99.6% of viewers are not subscribed. That's a huge number. By subscribing the channel that is completely free, you'll help support the channel and never miss fresh content. He's the CEO of Hartwell Industries. Richard extended his hand with a polite smile. "Pleasure to meet you. Victoria speaks of you often." Before I could respond, Victoria's perfectly manicured hand landed on my shoulder with what felt like a patronizing pat. "Yes, this is my older brother David. He's currently between opportunities." She paused, letting the words hang in the air like smoke. "Actually, let's be honest, he's been unemployed for almost 8 months now. Bit of a jobless loser, really, but we still love him." The words hit me like a physical blow. Jobless loser. At my son's wedding reception. In front of her CEO. Richard's smile faltered slightly, his eyes shifting uncomfortably. "I see. Well, the job market can be challenging." "Oh, it's not the market," Victoria continued with a laugh that sounded like breaking glass. "David's just, well, he's never been quite as driven as some of us. Always been content with mediocrity. Haven't you, David?" I felt the blood drain from my face. Around us, other guests had begun to take notice of the conversation. My ex-wife, Jennifer, who despite our divorce had remained civil for Marcus's sake, was staring at us with horror. My son's new in-laws looked mortified, but worse than their expressions was the look of pure rage building in Marcus's eyes as he stopped dancing and started walking toward us. "That's enough, Aunt Victoria," Marcus said, his voice tight with controlled fury. "This is my wedding, and you will not disrespect my father." Victoria waved him off dismissively. "Oh, darling, I'm just being honest. Your father knows I love him, but facts are facts. He lost his job at the accounting firm, hasn't found anything since, and frankly, I said enough." Marcus's voice cracked like thunder, causing the entire reception to fall silent. The string quartet stopped playing. 200 guests turned to stare at our family drama unfolding in real time. Sarah rushed to Marcus's side, her wedding dress rustling as she took his arm. "Maybe we should all just take a step back." But the damage was done. Victoria had successfully humiliated me at the most important day of my son's life, in front of everyone who mattered to our family. As I excused myself and walked toward the bathroom, I could hear the whispers starting, the conversations resuming with new gossip to fuel them. In the bathroom mirror, I stared at my reflection, a 50-year-old man in a rented tuxedo, fighting back tears at his son's wedding. Victoria was right about one thing. I had been unemployed for 8 months. What she didn't mention was why. I'd been the senior accountant at Morrison & Associates for 15 years when I discovered my supervisor was embezzling client funds. When I reported it, he retaliated by framing me for the theft. By the time I was cleared of all charges, My reputation was destroyed, and finding work in my field had become nearly impossible. I'd been surviving on savings, picking up odd jobs, and desperately trying to maintain some dignity while my world crumbled around me. But dignity was a luxury I could no longer afford, not after tonight. Walking back into the reception, I made small talk and forced smiles for the remaining hours, but my mind was already working. Victoria had chosen nuclear war by humiliating me at my son's wedding. She wanted to play games about success and failure? Fine, let's play. The next morning, I sat at my laptop with a cup of coffee and began researching. Victoria worked as Regional Vice President of Marketing at Hartwell Industries, a mid-sized manufacturing company with a stellar reputation for ethical business practices. Richard Hartwell, the CEO she'd introduced me to, was known in business circles for his strict moral code and zero tolerance for any behavior that reflected poorly on the company. I started with Victoria's social media. My sister had always been careless about her online presence, treating Facebook and Instagram like her personal diary. It didn't take long to find what I was looking for. There were photos from last month's business conference in Miami. Except Victoria had posted pictures of herself on the beach during what were clearly business hours, tagged at expensive restaurants and nightclubs. Her expense reports, which she'd foolishly shared screenshots of in a post about living her best life, showed charges to the company for personal shopping and spa treatments. But the real goldmine was her Twitter account. Victoria had a habit of posting complaints about her job, her colleagues, and even her clients. She'd tweeted about being hungover during important presentations, joked about padding her expense accounts, and even shared confidential client information in her attempts to sound important at parties. I screenshot everything, organized it chronologically, and created a comprehensive file. But I wasn't done yet. I reached out to my network. 15 years in accounting had connected me with people throughout the business community. A former colleague who now worked at Hartwell's main competitor mentioned that Victoria had been trying to poach their clients by sharing confidential Hartwell information. Another contact, a consultant who'd worked with Hartwell, confirmed that Victoria had a reputation for inappropriate behavior at industry events. The picture that emerged was of someone who was not just unprofessional, but actively damaging to her employer's reputation and interests. I spent a week crafting my approach. This couldn't look like a revenge plot from a jobless loser. It had to appear as a concerned citizen bringing important information to light. I created an anonymous email account and sent Richard Hartwell a carefully worded message. Mr. Hartwell, I hope this message finds you well. I'm writing as someone who deeply respects Hartwell Industries' reputation for ethical business practices. Recently, I've become aware of concerning behavior by one of your executives that may be damaging to your company's reputation and potentially exposing you to legal and financial liability. I attached the compiled evidence, the social media posts showing misuse of company time and resources, the tweets revealing confidential information, the documentation of her attempts to steal competitors' clients, and witness statements from industry contacts about her inappropriate conduct. I sent the email on a Tuesday morning and waited. Wednesday passed without incident. Thursday, Victoria called me, the first time she'd spoken to me since the wedding. David, I wanted to apologize about the other night, she said, though her tone suggested the apology was more strategic than sincere. I may have been a bit harsh. You know how I get when I'm networking. Don't worry about it, I replied calmly. We're family. These things happen. She seemed relieved by my response. Good, good. I'm glad you understand. Things are actually going really well for me at work right now. Richard mentioned he might be creating a new executive position, and I think I'm in the running. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Friday morning, my phone rang at 7:30 a.m. David! Victoria's voice was a shriek of rage and panic. What did you do? What the hell did you do? Good morning to you too, Victoria. What are you talking about? Don't play dumb with me. I've been fired, terminated. Richard called me into his office an hour ago with security and human resources. Someone sent them evidence about my social media and expense reports and, oh God, David, they're talking about pressing charges for embezzlement. I took a sip of my coffee, savoring the moment. That's terrible, Victoria. I'm so sorry to hear that. You did this. I know you did this. The timing is too convenient, right after the wedding. Victoria, I'm unemployed, remember? I'm just, jobless loser. How would I have the resources or connections to orchestrate something like this? The silence on the other end of the line stretched for nearly a minute. They're conducting a full audit, she finally whispered. Looking into all my expense reports, client communications, everything. My lawyer says if they find what they think they'll find, I could be looking at criminal charges. Maybe you should have thought about that before you decided to humiliate me at my son's wedding, I said quietly. Another long silence. You bastard, she breathed. No, Victoria. I'm just someone who got tired of being treated like trash by his own family. You wanted to make me look small in front of people who matter? Congratulations, you succeeded. But actions have consequences. She hung up on me. By Monday, the story had spread through our extended family. Victoria had indeed been terminated for cause, with Hartwell Industries releasing a statement about their commitment to ethical business practices. The audit had revealed thousands of dollars in fraudulent expense claims, and the district attorney's office was reviewing the case for potential prosecution. My phone started ringing. First, it was my mother, crying and begging me to fix this for Victoria. Then it was Victoria's friends, some pleading for mercy, others hurling accusations. Even Marcus called, though his conversation was different. Dad, he said carefully, I want you to know that what Aunt Victoria did at my wedding was completely unacceptable. Sarah and I were both furious. I appreciate that, son. But, did you really get her fired? I considered lying, but Marcus deserved the truth. I provided accurate information about her professional conduct to her employer. What they chose to do with that information was their decision. There was a long pause. She's family, Dad. Yes, she is. And family shouldn't humiliate each other at weddings, or any other time for that matter. I know, I'm not defending what she did. This feels like it got out of hand. Maybe he was right. Maybe I had gone too far. But as I sat in my apartment that night, eating a frozen dinner and looking at the stack of rejection letters from potential employers, I found it hard to feel remorse. Victoria had spent years treating me like a second-class family member, and the wedding incident had been just the final straw. She'd made her choices, the fraudulent expenses, the unprofessional social media posts, the breach of client confidentiality. I hadn't fabricated any evidence. I'd simply made sure the right person saw what was already there. 2 weeks later, I got a call from an unexpected source, Richard Hartwell. Mr. Patterson, this is Richard Hartwell from Hartwell Industries. I wonder if we might meet for coffee. My heart rate spiked. Had he figured out I was behind the anonymous email? We met at a quiet cafe downtown. Richard was dressed casually, looking more like a regular person than the CEO I'd met at the wedding. I'll be direct, he said after we'd ordered. I know you were the one who sent me the information about Victoria. I opened my mouth to deny it, but he held up a hand. The email analysis, the timing, the way the information was compiled, it was clearly done by someone with both accounting skills and a personal grievance. After I thought about it, I remembered what happened at your son's wedding. Victoria's behavior that night was revealing. I waited, unsure where this was going. I want you to know that your sister's termination had nothing to do with family drama and everything to do with her violations of company policy and potentially criminal behavior. The audit revealed more problems than we initially suspected. Mr. Hartwell, please call me Richard, and please let me finish. I've been thinking about what happened at the wedding and about you. Victoria mentioned you were an accountant? Yes, though I've been having difficulty finding work. He nodded. Background checks aren't always fair, are they? Sometimes good people get caught up in other people's mistakes. I looked at him sharply. He'd done his homework. We're going to be needing a new senior accountant, he continued. Someone with experience, integrity, and the backbone to stand up when they see something wrong. Interested? I stared at him, coffee cup halfway to my lips. Are you offering me a job? I'm offering you an interview. But yes, I'm fairly confident about the outcome. 6 months later, I was settling into my new office at Hartwell Industries, complete with a window view and a salary that was 20% higher than my previous position. The irony wasn't lost on me. Victoria's attempt to humiliate me had ultimately led to the best job opportunity of my career. Victoria, meanwhile, had avoided criminal charges through a plea agreement that required full restitution and community service. She'd moved back in with our parents and was working at a local retail store while trying to rebuild her life. The family remained divided. Some blamed me for being vindictive, while others felt Victoria had brought it on herself. Marcus and Sarah had invited me to dinner the previous week, and during dessert, Marcus brought up the wedding incident. You know, Dad, I've been thinking about what happened. What Aunt Victoria did was cruel and unnecessary. It's in the past now, I replied. No, I don't think it is. I think it taught me something important about standing up for the people you love and about consequences. Sarah nodded. Some of my friends thought you went too far, but honestly, Victoria made her own choices. You just made sure someone in authority knew about them. As I sat in my office that afternoon, looking out at the city skyline, I reflected on the events of the past year. Had I gone too far? Maybe. Did I regret it? That was harder to answer. Victoria had hurt me deeply, not just with her words, but with years of condescension and disrespect. The wedding incident had been the culmination of a lifetime of being treated as less than. Sometimes people need to face the consequences of their actions, and sometimes those consequences come from unexpected sources. My phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. Proud of you, Dad, not just for the job, but for not letting people walk all over you anymore. I smiled and went back to work. The books I was auditing needed my attention, and I'd learned the importance of doing things the right way. After all, integrity wasn't just about what you revealed about others, it was about who you chose to be when no one was watching. Victoria might have introduced me as a jobless loser, but she'd inadvertently taught me something valuable. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about bringing someone down, but about building yourself up. The job at Hartwell Industries wasn't just about getting even. It was about getting better. And sometimes that's the sweetest victory of all.